Hey guys, it's Carl Brown, and welcome to another Too Much Gain podcast. Now, first, I want to apologize. This is not just going to be a podcast channel, but I know there's not been a lot of tutorial content on the channel the past week and a half. The reason why is that it's because of Chaplin. Chaplin has not been feeling very well for the past week at least, and I was really worried about him last week. Took him to the vet on Friday, did a battery of tests, and he seems to be doing fine. Started feeling better over the weekend, and then Sunday night, he actually had a tumor that ruptured, and he had to have emergency surgery Monday morning. So that was yesterday. So he's recovering well. He's doing well, and he's getting back to normal. So that's been stressful, as you guys probably know. If you follow me on Instagram or whatever, please follow me on Instagram too. That's a really good place to follow me. You know how important my animals are to me. They are number one for me, and transcribing like a Fog Hat tune is a distant second. So that tutorials will probably start coming this weekend, hopefully. So anyway, we have a fun topic today.
Yes, we have a fun one today. I think it's gonna be really good.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk about auditions. Auditions that we did for other people, and people auditioning for us. And
auditioning for us as well.
Some of the interesting things that occurred along the way. So this is gonna be fun.
I think this is something, whether you're a musician or an actor or whatever, you probably had something that you had to do. It could be in high school, it could be anywhere.
Yeah.
But everyone's got their special stories auditioning. If you're in entertainment, you're gonna have to do
Yeah,
this.
or if you're just starting out and you're worried about being in a band, and you know that you're gonna have to audition for a band or put a band together and audition other people, and it's like you're all gonna have these experiences. So it's kind of shedding some light on the things that happen, and it's kind of it's fun. You kind of realize that everybody feels the same way, so you're not like the only one that feels this way. So anyway, but some funny things happen along the way to
I
us.
mean, we've had some interesting stories, especially the types of bands that we were in. You're gonna have some interesting characters that are on audition for your bands, and I would say probably the very first band, like our very first full band, that wasn't just we're playing with a couple of our really close friends. We had a band where we had this singer who he was a couple years older than us, but he was a really interesting guy. I mean, he was I think he had a shaved head, or he shaved it while he was in the band. He would show up into rehearsals, which were in our house, and he would bring bobby pins and just pierce his own ears.
Oh yeah.
And we were just we were a kid. We were like 16
We were still
years
in
old.
high school.
Yeah. So we were.
He was graduated. I guess he's probably 3 or 4 years older at least.
Yeah, we were really blown away. But he was sort of a hardcore guy. He was kind of a little. He was scrawny, but he was one of these scrappy guys. And we were, he was just a good screamer. I don't even remember much about his musical abilities. But so he used to borrow our car. Carl and I shared a car. So he used to borrow our car, and he took it, I don't know, at the beginning one day. When we were in school, we took the very minimum amount of courses to graduate.
By the way, this is not about his audition particularly.
Yeah.
This is, we're kind of
just the
working
story
our
around
way
it
to another audition. So
But in those days, we'd spend the whole day. That was great. We would spend the whole afternoon. We would get out of school at 11 because we were taking just a bare minimum classes to graduate. And they had this thing called work release, where we weren't working. We were going home and playing with our band every day for 5 hours. Mm-hmm. And but he showed up, and he was like, "I need to borrow your car," which he did occasionally. And so he borrows our car. He takes off, and he's not coming back. And we're like, where is he? Where is he? He's not coming back. And eventually we get a telephone call, and he is in jail, and our car is impounded.
But I don't remember what he was in jail for either.
Well, he had warrants.
Oh,
he had other warrants. So he was pulled over for speeding or something, and he had warrants. So they took him in immediately. He's not coming back to rehearsal.
And impounded
And
our car.
he's got our car. But before we did anything, our bass player, who had this sort of different circle of friends, was like, "I was at this party last weekend." And this friend of mine, he's kind of like a friend, a few friends that I've known for a while. He was, I don't know, singing Fear Factory tracks, or he was just screaming. And we were like, he's like, you want me to call him and see if he'll come over?
His voice was amazing.
And so we're like, yeah. I mean, we hadn't thought that we're getting rid of our singer yet, but so sort of an impromptu. This guy shows up like 30 minutes later, and he's like, what's up?
He's like 4 foot. No,
but he's cool looking. He had long hair.
He had long black hair to his waist, and he looked cool, and he could.
And he literally just walked in and was like, like that. And we were like, our mouths just like, what in the world? Okay, do you want to be in the band? He's like, yeah, I'll be in the band.
Yeah.
And
he's a really sweet guy, too.
Yeah. And so we immediately had changed, like that day, we had changed singers. So we went and got our car, and like I said, this guy that was in jail was a little off the hook, and so we go to his court hearing, which I think was his next day.
His first court hearing was like in 3 days, like so he's arraigned. He brought in with all these other guys, like chained all these other guys, and then we're sitting in the courtroom, and
I don't know what made us do it. But we brought our new singer. We hadn't like told him that he's singing or we got a new singer or anything like that. We bring this guy.
We moved on quick.
Yeah. This guy's, he's wearing the orange jumpsuit. He's in here. He's in this courtroom tied like, to other people. And he's turning around and he's not even like paying attention to what the judge is saying because he's like looking at us like, who's that guy? Who's that guy? Or
he's like trying to talk to him. The judge is like, sir, he's trying to talk to him about his charges and do you accept these things? He's not even, he's looking back at us going, he's trying under his breath. He's like trying to ask who this guy is that you're hanging out with.
Yeah, I think he saw the writing. So he used his phone call. When we got home, our phone was ringing and he was like, who's that guy you brought? Who's that guy? I haven't seen that guy before. And I don't know how it, because I think he was actually he was gone for a while. He was gone for a while, so it kind of like went away pretty quickly. I don't think we had to be like, oh, you're no longer our singer, because this guy would be like, well, I'm going to come by and we'll see about that kind of guy. But we were, I just remember I think he was in jail for a while, so it became a non-issue because he was just. So that was our first giving somebody an audition,
and then taking him to court with us,
which we didn't even realize was going to happen.
Let our
new
singer know.
I don't know if it was really ballsy or really stupid, or we weren't even thinking about it, or the guy had nothing better to do but to come to the court with us. I don't know, but that was a.
Those were the days like when we were teenagers that we had, we lived with my dad, and my dad was like super cool, so he let my band basically live there.
Yeah,
our practice room was my dad's bedroom.
Yeah, and remember
because he had the master bedroom, so it was the only room big enough in the house to put all of our in. So we just had gear everywhere. He could barely get out of his bed and then walk through our gear, but he let us set up and we practiced there for about half a year.
He had that old like bedroom set, and our mixing board was on top of his like Chester drawers, and he scratched the shit out of them. But
and then so cool we'd be in there, and our guys. So that's why our new singer was with us at the court hearing, because we had to go to this court hearing. I think it was when we bailed our car out at the same time, and I remember that the reason why he was with us is because he's pretty much living with us by that point.
Yeah,
and we all had one car we used, and it was that car we needed to get. So everybody stuck together because nobody had anywhere else to go.
Yeah, that's basically what you did.
And so I remember those days, and that was like, I think it was like our senior year of high school is what it was.
Could have been. Yeah, could have been in the middle of it.
So,
I think another one you were talking about. I mean, you had an audition not long after that for the School of the Arts. You were doing classical.
Oh
guitar.
Yeah, so a whole different type of music. Yeah. So this is in '94. So the North Carolina School of the Arts is like more of a classical. They do everything, not only classical music and guitar, but they do like ballet and all that stuff, whatever. It's a complete art school. And we were gonna audition. I remember you auditioned too.
Well, I was going to, but it would turn into this.
We had to do this. What's the instrument?
Like I have to play xylophone. I'm like, I don't play xylophone. Yeah. This isn't. I'm not. Give me a drum.
So that's kind of the reason why I didn't end up going too, because so me and my friend Mike, who's the guy who's my best friend when we were growing up, and he was a guitar player too. So we decided in like '94. to try to go and do classical guitar at this. Now this place was about 45 minutes from my house. This is where this conservatory was at. And they had a very small classical guitar program, but very prestigious. The leader of the school is Aaron Shearer, who's one of the most well-known classical teachers of all time. And so it was very prestigious. But they only let about 8 people in a year. So it was a really small program, but really hard to get into.
And you had barely done any classical guitar.
I had not. So I had played guitar for quite a while by that point, but I had no classical guitar experience. And it was in February of that year, of 94, that I just decided on a whim, I was like, I'm going to get into this school and this year, and I'm going to start learning how to play classical guitar. And I looked at their audition dates, and the latest audition date they had was like late in May. They had all these audition dates throughout the spring, but so I picked the last one. So I had like a few months to see if I can become a reasonable classical guitar player. And it was like a crash course in classical guitar. Me and my buddy Mike, we both did the same thing. We're like, we're going to do this. We'll see if we can get into this school. And I remember, putting like 3 or 4 months of my life into like a hardcore. And then I remember the night before, and Mike stayed over, and we could not sleep. And we had this audition at like 7 in the morning. And for like a hard rock metal musician, it was my first year out of high school. I was nocturnal. It was really, anyway. You do not want to be anywhere at 7 a.m. in the morning, especially these. So we go to this conservatory, and I've got to audition. And this place is like a mausoleum. It's like you're walking through in these cold hallways, and there's little music playing.
A bunch of people walking around in suits to audition.
Very proper. People bringing their kids in there, and they're coming in. There's all this entourage with them, and the people are just in full suits. And me and Mike are looking at each other like, what in the hell? Yeah. We have wasted 4 months of our life. We are never getting into this. And Mike's audition was like 2 hours before mine. Mine was like the very last one of the day. So Mike's was like really early. So I got there with him. We drove there together. And he does his audition. And he comes out, and he's just like, and I'm like, what? He's like, they didn't even let me finish. We ain't getting in this damn thing. And he's like, it's this he's like, he was like so pissed. And I was like so dejected, but I had to sit there and go and sit there in this place and walk around these calls, and it was so stressful. And I've got to go sit there in front of this guy. He's describing to me the process of audition. He said, the guy's like, he don't let you play. He's just a prick. He's just going to watch you play, and he's going to tell you to stop 20 seconds into your piece. Go start the next one. You're supposed to play 3 pieces of music. And I was like, well, and I had my mind all shifted that I'm never getting into this place. So I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
I don't care now. So I went in there with a little bit of an attitude, I think. I'm like, this is...
Check this out.
I was like, I don't really care. I'm just doing this because my mom wants me to do it. I wanted to be a classical guitarist. I sit down and I start playing, and they let me finish the first piece. And I'm like, you guys aren't, you're not supposed to let me finish. And then I was like, and he was like, that's very, very good. And then they're asking me, wow, when did you start playing classical guitar? And I was like, in February. And they're just like looking at each other like, well, okay. And then I do the next one. And then they let me play all 3 pieces. And he tells me a couple of things, like gives me a couple of tips about this piece that I was playing. And then this was not Aaron Shearer, by the way, that was given the audition. They were like, well, our slots are full. You're the last audition of all these months. You're the last guy. We've already filled our slots. But what we'd like you to do is come back for this summer 5-week workshop, and we're going to put you on like a wait list. And I was like, all right. So I actually came up and went to the workshop and got accepted into the entire school for their degree. They made exception for me. And then they tried to make an exception for me because I had not taken the SATs. I had no plans of going to college in high school. I had no plans of doing like a degree where I had to study like math and philosophy and all that. I just wanted to do music. That's it. And they only let people in there who went into the degree program, not their diploma program where you didn't have to do all that stuff. So I was like, they offered me a spot in the degree program. And so that was like a great honor to be offered that. But I said no. But I was like, because I'm not going to do all this. Plus, you weren't going to be in the school.
Yeah,
and I was like,
do it at
I
all.
was still young. And I was like, I'm not going to come out here by myself. No, none of my friends are here. My brother's not here. I got to go to normal college. I got to take English class, all this stuff. I don't want to take this stuff. And so then the guy calls me a week later and he says, we're going to make another exception. You don't have to do the degree program. You can just do the diploma program. You can just do the music classes. That's it. We just want to work with you as a guitar player. And I was like, I'm sorry, man. I already sold my classical. I sold my classical that week. And I went back to like just being a rock guy for a while. So yeah, that was my audition for them.
God, that's just, I couldn't imagine like auditioning for something that you played so little. Done so little.
Yeah.
I mean, you play guitar, but classical guitar is like a completely different instrument, basically.
Yeah.
But
I think they were just, I wasn't the player, I'm sure, that these guys were auditioning, but I was more of they saw the potential there.
Yeah,
so.
but one of those, I guess, is pretty similar, but this was an insane thing that happened. Something that you don't have a lot of experience in. I guess I've got a fantastic audition story around that.
Oh, so I haven't heard these stories in a while, so this is going to be fun for me to sit back and listen to these again.
I'm sorry, if you guys see from our Instagram pages, we shared stuff when we were on The Office and stuff like that, and we were, in Spider-Man 3. We did a little bit of acting back in the day. Now, we never had to audition for anything like that. We had an agent. So this would have been about 2006 or 5 or something like that. We had this agent came up to us when we were in the gym when we lived in the valley, and he came up to us and he was like, "Do you guys want to be in a pilot?" And we were like, "We're not actors." He's like, "Oh, that's fine. You're actors, musicians. You're still, ignorant dreamers. You're still, but
willing to work for nothing."
Yeah. So he's like, "Do you guys want to do in this pilot?" And he's like, "We'll pay you like this much." I forgot how much it was. And we're like, "Yeah." So this was a guy that we figured out later on. He like discovered Carmen Electra. I remember it was like Carmen Electra and like a couple of other people. So he was sort of like a guy who like found people, and he was pretty well known in the industry. So he like the next day,
Carmen Electra.
He takes us into central casting in LA. And there's you ever go there, there's a line out the door of actors. You're basically just trying to they're bringing their headshots. They're basically trying to get just in the system, start getting as like extra work and stuff like that. And so we did that. And we were with him, and we were identical twins. They let us skip the line. We go all the way in the back. They take our headshots for us
for free.
And the guy was like, "Screw that pilot. Do you guys want to be in Spider-Man 3?"
Yeah.
And so we're like, "Okay." And
so we did that for 2 weeks.
Yeah, basically what they were doing is because it was like this scene where the crane goes to the building.
The crane disaster scene.
And they thought this was going to take 2 solid weeks, like 24 hours a day to film. So what they had the idea for, and it was like the most expensive movie ever at the time being made, is they got like 15 sets of twins and from all over the world. And you're basically going to work in shifts. So they could have one unit and another unit
So I work 12 hours. He works 12 hours. So I can shoot for 24 hours because there's a lot of CGI and stuff. And we're playing like these male models. So they just wanted to be able to continually shoot and not break labor laws.
Yeah, I think mostly you're on. I think I was called in like one day. So I was on call. You were in there working with like Sam Raimi.
So here's the thing. We both got paid the same amount of money, but they ended up being able to shoot it much faster. So the only person you ever see on video is me on that. And he was sitting at home.
I was about playing tennis, sitting against the wall, just like
eating nachos,
getting
whatever.
Paid to sit at home.
Getting paid the exact same amount. I'm getting up at 4 a.m. to go to these damn sound stages. It's a horrible experience. But
yeah. So anyway, that was the we did, and later we got The Office and stuff like that. But we never had to audition for anything. We're not actors. But in 2010, I got the idea, and this was at the time, this is after the economy had crashed. We both taught lessons in the Valley for a year.
I was already doing the YouTube thing.
Yeah, and so it was like we're okay. So just kind of looking for ideas. So I had this idea. A few years earlier, some inklings were to maybe do it. Was to audition for the Blue Man Group. And
Ted's a world-class drummer, by the way. He does not play guitar. I know everybody in the comments are like, both play guitar together, or is he doing half the videos? No, every video that we've ever had on the channel, tutorial video, is me. If it was him, you'd know it. You'd know it. So anyway,
hopefully.
So I was like, all right. So they were doing these open auditions. And I thought, I was kind of naively thinking, okay, this is going to be like, okay, they're drummer based. It's like a drumming show. So this is my thing. And the thing about the Blue Man Group, which is different, which kind of really narrows it down, is that you have to be between 5'11" and 6'1". So it's a very narrow range, and I'm 6 feet even. So I had that. I was a professional drummer, and I had acting experiences. They have acting. So I show up at this audition. It's like a cattle call audition, or whatever they call it. There's like 400 people at the Venetian in Las Vegas. They show up for these auditions, and very quickly. So you start with they start with a drumming audition, and I remember there was like a camera crew that was filming for a local news or something because they were doing auditions, which they didn't do a lot. They were trying to find the new Blue Man. Blue Man has like 10 or 15 different shows around the world. So there's like 40 some Blue Men or something, at least back then.
So you were going for the Vegas.
No, actually, at that time they were open. That's one thing that kind of bugged me, is I thought that maybe I was going to be
like you audition there, but they'd make you go to Macau or something like that.
Yeah. So, so we show up to do. So I showed up to this, and all these guys that were auditioning, they were like, "Do you mind? Will you let this film crew film your audition?" and every single one, they're all like terrified, and every single one of them is like, "No, I just don't want it." And they're like, "That's cool." But when they got to me, I was like, if you can't have a film crew on you, how are you going to play on a big show on stage? And so I was like, yeah, film me, no problem. Let's do it.
It's mostly drums anyway,
yeah, it's
right?
just drum. Well, this is the drum audition. So I was like, yeah, film that all day long, So I get in there, and I remember I'd like grab it, and he was like immediately like, okay, I can see that you really play drums. But, because I'm holding the sticks like you're supposed to. But he's like, they hold the sticks like hammers. They hold them like hammers. So he just goes, and this lasts like 2 minutes. I mean, just like a little, showing a couple patterns. I just had to mirror it back. And so that was over like that. And so the drumming audition's over. And so what I thought was going to be like a big part of the show, that's it. He's like, okay, so the second phase, go in there and sit down, and you'll be called in for your second phase audition, the acting part. And so I was like, okay. So we go to this thing. Now there's 400 people, and they had told us going in that we're bringing this down to 20 people in this day. So it's gonna go from 400 to 20 people to the next level of auditions, which are the following day. But your first day, you get a drumming audition and a little short acting audition. So the acting audition, I walk in. There's two guys sitting there. One of them's like the Blue Man, and one of them's he's one of the Blue Men. He was introduced. He's like one of the head Blue Men at the Las Vegas show, and another guy. So it's just two guys, and they're sitting on a couch, and they're like, hey, and they're like, so what we want you to do is go around, go out of the room, and come back in. But when you come back in, so you're not allowed to speak. Blue Men are mutes, so you're not allowed to speak. So you basically have to be with your expression. They're like, we want you to come in, and you walk into you're walking in, and we are in like an old Western saloon, and we're the two guys that murdered your brother. And so with your eyes, you have to let us know that A, you're pissed at us, 2, that you're going to get revenge, but also not set it off. So we're going to have a gunfight go off in here right now. So they're trying to see how you're expressing with your eyes and your facial expressions.
I'd be so bad at that.
Yeah, I mean, I was. So I step in, and I do it. And, I just trying to give them, kind of like a scowl, but not like, basically what they were asking for. They try to kind of stare you back and, try to see what your reaction. That lasted like 45 seconds. And they're like, okay. And so we leave, and like, if you're called later on today, you'll be, in the auditions tomorrow. And so I remember waiting around, and eventually later on the day they called. I made the final 20. And so they're like, be at this place, be at this little conference hall at the Venetian.
And he's like, and you have like a spot, like your spot's like 11:15, so it's just a solo audition. This is your spot right here. And so you have no idea what's about to take place. So I go down there and I get there a little early, and you can hear all this like commotion, like screaming going on in the room. And there's this other guy who's auditioning right in front of me, right, like he's waiting too. And when we struck up a conversation, he was like a real actor. He had been in LA. He's done a lot of things. And he was like a super nice guy. And we were kind of like, God, what's going on in there? And everything. He's like, oh, I've done like 100 auditions and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, really? Well, I've never done an acting audition in my life. And he's like, really? I was like, yeah. So anyway, that guy leaves and that guy goes into the room. And I hear like screaming and just like all this like craziness. I'm just kind of like, at this point, I know it's so much acting that I'm like, I'm not really, you're kind of just
like me in my audition. I was like,
just live in it, live outside yourself, be like the super you, which, you
come into the room and you're just basically like, you guys are lucky I'm here. Yeah. That's basically what you have to have that.
So basically, the whole thing, so it's like a 15-minute audition. This guy comes back out of the room, and I'm supposed to be going in next. And we bonded. He just kind of cuts a path, right? He's like sweating. I to this day, I think he shit his pants because he's like walking. He doesn't have any conversation or let me know what's going on. He just makes a beeline. He's like sweating. He was traumatized. And I'm like, okay, so this is perfect. This is the first audition I'm ever going to do. And it's going to be the worst one that you could ever want to do. So I walk into this room. It's a big conference room. There's all these like little things you can kind of run around inside the room. And there's like 15 people there, like all of the creators of Blue Men Group, all of the Blue Men from the Vegas show, a lot of people, I guess, in the corporate offices and stuff. And they're all sitting behind this desk, and some are like standing, but they have this desk and they have these little items from like paper clips to like, erasers, just little odd items, just kind of random items, salt and pepper shakers. And they're like, okay, you can't talk, Blue Man. So you have to do everything with your face and your eyes. We are aliens. You have spent 5 years on this planet trying to find us. And your spaceship, if it doesn't leave in the next 12 minutes, is going to explode. So you have 12 minutes to get in your spaceship and leave. But you've been here for 5 years, you've never found us, and you just found us right before you got to get back on your spaceship. He's like, so without talking, you need to use these items and try to let us know that first you're not trying to kill us, and convince us to come back with you, that you're trying to take us home. And I'm like, okay, sure, no problem. So they're basically trying to see how you improvise. They're trying to see all this crazy stuff. You start going, so I quickly figure out what the screaming is. It's them. You're like picking up items and you're like mutely trying to, I'm like, I have no idea what in the world they want from this right now, but you just wing it. Like, what could anyone else be doing? I'm like running around the place, trying to go up to different ones, shoot different items, show them how to work it. Trying to do different things to try to engage with them, to show them that I'm like friendly. And they're like, some of them are cool, and then some will like scream at you to try to freak you out, And I'm like running around the room, and like halfway through it, I'm like, inner dialogue. Man, you had like 10-hour practice sessions a day. What the are you doing here? This is the dumbest thing ever. Like, what are you doing? And so I kind of like halfway, I'm just like, I don't care, you know? So I kind of just, I don't even remember much of what I did, but it was like the craziest scenario. And then boom, your craft. I mean, they never said, we're convinced to go with you or anything like that. I think they were just, there was no like really in-game solution. They want to see how you improvise with their reactions and what you can do. So that's cool. It's sort of like, don't call us, we'll call you sort of situation. But like 2 months later, I got called. And I think at that time, And they're trying to get me to go to like Santa Monica at some theater, but we had decided that we were going to go to Vegas and do a show in Vegas ourselves. So I think we had basically decided that by the time
you had made it to the final then.
I don't know. I
never
never
made it to the next stage, but you didn't.
Yeah, I don't know if they were like, because they're like the final stage is like you go to New York and you do training for like 3 months or something like that. And so I don't know if like going down there would have been like you've been accepted, you're a blue man, but I just never found out because I just figured out I'm just like this is way outside of my realm, and it's not really one I want to do, and we always have to do things together unless you're going to be one too. I can't really do it, but yeah. So it was an insane audition process, and I don't think I've really ever heard many stories of people talking about crazier environments.
Actually, what it makes me think of, like, my only failed audition experience that I can remember was back, I think I'd just gotten out of high school, actually. And I think that our band had, like, split up. And you were trying to do your, like, progressive drumming solo type.
Yeah,
Terry
I was
Bozzio
completely
stuff.
in love with Terry Bozzio. I want to be like a solo.
And he was like, "Yeah, so you're gonna just have this
be like
massive
a solo
kit and just do solo drum stuff," which is like so interesting.
Yeah.
So I went off and I was trying to find some other band, and these are guys that I think I went to high school with too. But this is like after high school, and they had like a full-on grunge band. And well, it's kind of funny. I think me and Mike both went audition again together, and I just have a brief, like, this will be a much more brief story. They, like 3 or 4 months before that, I remember I went to a Michelangelo Badio guitar clinic.
I remember that.
I've been to a couple of his clinics, and I don't know, I got kind of inspired to do the whole sweep thing. And so I had spent the previous 3 or 4 months doing a lot of that, right? Then I go audition for a grunge band, and these guys collectively, across the whole band, probably have about 8 hours of practice experience. They are not musicians, all right? They wanted to be the dirtiest,
lifestyle musicians,
grungiest, like, we're gonna be simple and all this stuff.
Why is your strap so high?
So they had a few songs. I mean, it was just horrid, like simple, like, I mean, it made Nirvana look like Dream Theater. This is how complex their music was. And they start playing this stuff, and I'm trying to impress, right? I have no clue. I've only played with you. I haven't played with you. Okay. So I started doing all this sweep shit over this, I don't know, sweater song stuff. I don't know what the hell they were playing. And they just looked at me like I was an alien. like, what in the world? And I mean, and these people look at you like if you're a grunge guy back then, and a guy like me walks in and just wants to like, they hate you. They literally want to start a fight or something. And it was like, I remember it was very like, we're going to get out of here. We're just going to leave or whatever. These guys were like totally committed to this whole, I can't believe you've practiced your instrument, man. What in the hell? But anyway, I would probably have the same if somebody came in doing the sweeps these days. I'd probably have the same reaction.
Yeah, well, you did that. I guess maybe maybe like a little one. You did that little cover band in LA not long before we moved
Super
to Vegas.
Chump. Yeah, so I did, but right before we moved to Vegas, I started trying to make some extra money and do some cover bands, because that's the only way you can make money in a band in Los Angeles is to be in a cover band. Your original music doesn't make any money. This isn't 1985 anymore. Nobody supports local bands. So basically, actually, local bands have to pay to play. So we would, but there are places that you can play in a cover band and get paid, whatever, the rate varied. So I decided I needed some extra money back then. So we went and I auditioned for this band, and they had this kind of a really well-known like rehearsal facility. And this is where they set up. And I go there, and there's like maybe half a dozen guys like in line to audition for this peak. And I think like 3 of them were for the Musicians Institute, because they're like college students, and they at the Guitar Institute of Technology, musicians, whatever. I don't know if they still have that. And they that's the only way you can make extra money as a musician in this town, is to play like cover stuff. So so it's all these like Musicians Institute guys, and then I walk in. I remember I didn't have my guitar. I had to borrow a student's guitar. And I used that. And I've actually used this guitar in one video. It's a Herman Lee signature model, like one of his first ones. And the thing felt so awkward to me. I'm just totally not used to it. I mean, these S-body guitars are like really, they're so tiny. I can't really, I feel like there's no guitar there. It's like I need more material to lean on and stuff. And so I went and auditioned with this thing. And I remember sitting there and, but the one video I did was Eugene's Trick Bag. That's what I did with that song. Anyway, go back. That was a student's guitar. So it was the same week I did that Eugene's Trick Bag video. I'm doing this because my guitar was in the shop, and I auditioned for these band, and the guys are in the room. They have all the guys that you're auditioning against are in the same room, and it was like
fun.
All these GT guys. I played like 2 or 3 songs with them, and then you can see the guys' faces, like their dejection. Oh, these guys. So I got the gig, and then I ended up playing with these guys, and they're all became really good friends.
But it is awkward when they stay in the room.
Yeah, and then that was what actually helped us kind of crystallize, because there was opportunities here in LA, but more in Vegas. So we went to Vegas to kind of do the same thing, but on a much bigger scale.
Yeah, so we had some interesting
the Vegas
auditioning other
so we
people
were auditioning other people in Vegas.
Yeah. So Vegas surprised me, because I remember when we got there, it's like the entertainment capital of the world. That's how it's built in. There's a lot of singers, there's a lot of groups and stuff like that. But we just had so much difficulty finding
musicians,
people to fill this up. And I remember we originally got one singer that we agreed to be in the band. I think he was in the band for about 3 weeks, but he still lived in Los Angeles. And I think just from that experience with him, that we were like, all right, it's going to have to be someone local, because it was a pain having someone from LA.
Which we ended up selling.
Which we ended up doing anyway, because like
we
I said,
ended up not being able to find a singer in Vegas, and a guy from LA moved out.
Like one of these auditions, this guy comes in, and he was sort of, like this kind of like heavy set kind of redneck guy. And he like shows up, and we're auditioning, so making sure everyone can hear everywhere. We used to have a space in like the old CBS building in Vegas, and so we did that, and we all had in-ears,
in-ear monitors,
yeah. So we start,
and we give it to the person audition. We give them their own in-ear monitors,
so everyone can hear exactly everything. We have tracks going, and you can hear yourself very well. So we start going, and we start singing, and this guy, obviously, he was just. I don't remember the exact songs that we were auditioning on.
Yeah, he was in over his head.
But he was way in over his head. And we get to the end of the track, and one of the tracks, and the guy literally goes, "Yeah, I just
the in-ears.
He's motioning to his in-ears, but he's like, "Yeah, I don't like hearing myself. And I don't like hearing myself to this level." And Carl goes, "You're not the only one, man." But I don't remember if you cued that so only we could hear it, or not the guy. You probably, I don't remember, because I remember dying laughing. I was just like, oh my God, we had that, and it was just like, obviously he didn't get the gig, but
I remember one guy that did get a singer, but it was for a week, but he looked cool, and he had long hair, and he had decent stage presence. And he could sing Still of the Night, so I was like, "Oh, we can finally do Still of the Night." So we would do that with him, and he had this 80s metal voice. So he was a good singer. The only main thing I remember about him is he walked in with one of those 185-ounce sodas that you can get at 7-Eleven, and he's just sitting there sucking on that thing in between every song. And I don't know what the condition's called. And I have this really bad. I cannot listen to people eat or drink.
Yeah.
The sound of that, these people have these ASMR, I don't know what it stands for.
How can I do
those channels where you got those girls on there going.
My wife does that.
And that is my own personal hell. If I was diagnosed with a terminal disease, and they're like, you don't have very long to live, and for me to want to feel like I'm extending my life, I'll listen to that because it'll make me feel like I'm living forever.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I don't know how people listen to that stuff. Listening to people eat and the noises they make with their mouth.
Or people whose personality changes when they get hard candy or something.
Oh yeah,
they get all
sucking on it.
Yeah.
So these things I can't stand.
Yeah, we're OCD about stuff.
That if I'm eating dinner, and it was let's just shut the TV off and have conversations over dinner, I'm like,
no.
This makes me feel like a serial killer.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, no way. Let's crank the TV. I'm not going to listen to you people eat for the next 30 minutes, right? So anyway, this guy, this huge, oh God, it drove me nuts. And you can't tell people this. Like, can you just like shut it down and not drink ever?
Yeah, I remember having that one guy who showed up, and there's a show in Vegas called Yellow Brick Road, which is like the biggest show band that's been there for a really long time. And I remember he did some sub work as a singer, so we're like, okay, in that band, so these guys should be good. And he shows up to audition, and he brought his girlfriend, but he was like, it's my manager kind of deal. And we were like, what? Why are you bringing your chick to an audition? You're only going to be here 30 minutes, you know. You guys separate for 2 seconds and do an audition? And I remember he's like, oh, she's my manager. Oh, that's great. But I remember like shutting the door on her or something. Or
she can manage you from the lobby.
I know, or something. And I remember like when the door got peered open, he did one track, and then he kind of opened the door, and she was like doing this thing, trying to look and see what the hell's going on. And he was saying, but he was like, I remember him being really nervous. And like the last track, he kind of realized that you know, he wasn't going to be the selection. And so he decided to just like let loose, and he started doing like some Billy Idol and just screaming like in this demented way. It was just like, what in the hell is this guy doing? And so yeah, he didn't get the gig either, but we eventually not long, that might have been actually after we had already you know, you do an audition, you're like, oh, this guy's pretty golden, and he actually became the vocalist in the band. And we had things all, but we were not gonna like we're not gonna pass up auditioning other people. So I think at the same time we were like, we had a good laugh because we already knew we had a singer. Yeah. But it was kind of crazy. But I don't. That's about all I can think of right now. We haven't had you know, too many where we've had to like do things.
Well, auditions are stressful for everybody. You can see these people that there's so much stress, and some of them are nightmarish, and some of them are just
funny.
Yeah. And I think that the moral of the story is really, if you're gonna go in there,
just don't give a shit.
You have got to convince yourself, even though you know you're putting a lot of work into this, you've got to convince yourself that they're lucky to have you there, kind of thing. Yeah. And if you do that, it's one of those things like, you know, who's really good at this stuff is like Steve I. He can like describe how your mental state affects everybody else's mental state around you, and stuff like that.
What you think project of yourself.
If you project something, people will see you that way, the way you see yourself. Yeah. So exactly. When you walk in the room, that really, that's how humans work. That's how humans can like weed out the weak ones and the strong ones. And then that's what you have to do. You basically have to project this positive energy about yourself, really. And even if your might be the best guitar player or musician that auditions, they'll probably take you because you have this like air about you, this air of confidence, and it actually puts people at ease, you know. And instead of like, oh, you know, everybody being on edge and like this guy's nervous or whatever, and you walk in like, hey, what's up? Whatever.
Yeah, really just gotta act like you've done this before. And, you know.
It's easier said than done, but at the same time, if you realize that the energy you put out that's people feel that.
Yeah. And like how you view yourself.
If you're aware of it,
other people will see you. That's like Steve I's, like you projecting, like how you project yourself, you know.
If you all you put is like world, that's what comes back to you. That's what when you're every single day when you wake up and these feeling good about yourself as a musician or feeling whatever you project out there, what your worries are, what your anxieties are about, that you're thinking about every day, those are what's going to happen to you. Yeah. You make them realized in real form. But if you reverse it and you basically think differently, like he actually has a saying called "you are that." I don't know if he got it from his like, but you are what you envision in your mind to be. If you think about it long enough, you just envision how you're going to be as a musician or how you can present yourself for people. That becomes reality. Yeah. But anyway, enough of this philosophical things. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us today. We might see another one of these soon, and keep the requests coming in for different topics we can tackle.
And tell us about all your fun audition stories as well. Oh yeah, those are always fun to read.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you guys.